and Yeroun at 6:10 a.m. local time. It also reported targeting the settlement of Even Menachem at 6 a.m. with a swarm of attack drones. You know, Mr. Arvind Singh Tejawat and our viewers of NewsX, I'd like to tell you about the madman theory. Now, viewers, the madman theory is a political theory which is commonly associated with the foreign policy of US President Richard Nixon and his administration, who tried to make the leaders of hostile communist bloc countries think Nixon was irrational and volatile so that they would avoid provoking the US in fear of an unpredictable response. Now, viewers, let me explain this a little further. The premise of the madman theory is that the appearance of irrationality makes otherwise non-credible threats seem credible. And now, international relations and scholars have been skeptical of the madman theory as a strategy for success in coercive bargaining. The point that I'm getting to, Mr. Tejawat, here is that when you look at Trump initially, you feel like the man doesn't know what he's doing. But do you think he's applying the madman theory to his conflicting statements?
Yes, very much true. You rightly mentioned the things, and when you were telling about it, madman theory, then of course I was thinking about the Nixon and what he did in his regime. So absolutely, the Donald Trump is following the same strategy, and even I stated the same thing on multiple platforms that Donald Trump, when he's making a foolish statement, then there is a strategy behind it, because normally no American president makes any statement without the consent of his advisors. And definitely the President Trump's advisor advising him to behave like this so the people cannot predict him and the policymakers can make strategy in a better way. So of course you rightly said and you beautifully explained the things that what is the madman theory and how it works. So President Trump is following the same. But here, the difference between President Trump and Nixon is that Nixon really succeeded in that theory, and he countered the communist regime at that moment. And at that moment, the propaganda was also on a high, even through the American and the Hollywood movies. Even these were also part of that propaganda. But now the world is full with the information, and there are multiple platforms where sometimes the propaganda doesn't work. So President Trump is not succeeding. At the same time, since he's not succeeding, so he's blaming his previous presidents like Barack Obama, who really did a great for the US economy and became a president twice. And he blamed on some other people. So I suppose what the earlier president of the United States has earned by their efforts, the President Trump has already lost, because before this war on Iran, the Hormuz Strait was open for all, and now the Iran is planning much more. In the beginning, Iran's prediction was that if he'll control the Strait of Hormuz or many other sources of earning or the control, then probably he might lose the international support. But now he seen that even the important support is losing on a part of United States, not on a part of Iran. So I suppose the President Trump is completely failed, and that's why the today morning speech was to cope up with those failure and to let the American people have an impression that what the President Trump is doing is really great, and he wanted his supporters and his near and dear people to speak in that way. That's why some of his advisors were making statement in a praise that President Trump is such a great president and is one of the most patriotic presidents. So these are statement even is not affecting the opinion about President Trump if we think about the common man of the United States. So that is the thing that what the President Trump is willing to do at this moment. Over to you, Vaishali.
All right, I'll come back to my guest. Now, the Israeli military, viewers, has issued 2 statements warning of missiles launched from Iranian territory towards Israel. As per reports, attacks have triggered alarms across northern Israel, and that one of the missiles carried a fragmented warhead. Commodore Sodhi, when I started reading about the madman theory, I found it very, very fascinating. And the fact that, I just want to understand from you, what do you feel about it? Do you really feel Donald Trump is applying the madman theory, or is he just what he is? And the fact that a study has found that the madman theory is frequently counterproductive, but that it can only be effective under certain conditions. What do you have to say, Commodore Sodhi?
Vaishali, in my view, I don't think he is applying the madman theory. He has his own ways of handling things. He is a businessman. And, saying that he's being advised by his advisors to maybe react in the way he is doing that, I don't think that also is true. He generally, goes by his instinct and keeps on making the statements. The fact is that as of now, Trump has understood that whatever actions have been taken by Israel and America to annihilate Iran, they have not fructified the way they thought of. And also the way, he reached out to the other countries, China, South Korea, as well as to the NATO countries and European countries, including also Japan. No one came to his rescue. The countries decided not to get involved in this conflict. So that too was a big setback to Mr. Trump. And when you talk of this madman theory, I don't think at all that Mr. Trump is thinking in those terms. Yes, he will keep on making statements. We can say that a type of psychological warfare he's doing, and but that is not at all causing any sort of a what you call it. So far as Iran is concerned, they are taking these statements of Mr. Trump with a lot of humor, and they are retaliating as and when required. You also said that Israel got hit by a missile which had some, fragmented warhead. And I have made a mention that Israel may be having some of these missiles which are very advanced and lethal. So as of now, Mr. Trump now is looking for some sort of a, relief as to how he can come out of this conflict. And maybe he will pass on the, this conflict to the Middle East countries and Israel to continue the strikes, and US may come out of this.